Hey guys, how's it going? This is CRP speaking to you. This is CRP, sorry about that, speaking to you live on July 25th, 2021. And I'm going to be discussing South Africa and what's going on there. And as usual, before I get started with the broadcast, please give me a +1 in the comment section to make sure that you guys can see and hear me properly. I'd appreciate it. Now, I was supposed to give this broadcast a week ago today, and I was great to see all those +1s. I was laid up with a really nasty cold. Was it COVID? Who knows? I haven't gotten the test yet. And from what I understand, they've just pulled one of the tests. I forget which one, the one that they had allowed starting in February of 2020. And now they're saying that that test actually doesn't work. Oh, man. And I've been hearing some other stuff too, that all the people who are in ICUs are people who got the vaccines. And yeah, I mean, this is a whole clusterfuck. But anyway, I'm not going to be talking about that. I just wanted to mention the fact that I was under the weather. It was a pretty nasty cold, to tell you the truth. And my sense of smell and taste is completely gone. You probably can hear me that I'm a little bit nasal. And yeah, my sense of smell is just gone, and my sense of taste is as well. I mean, I can feel textures, but I can't smell or taste anything. I mean, like unsweetened coffee, for instance, it's just a warm liquid. Really, I'm not kidding. It's kind of remarkable. And yeah, you know, I've tried experimenting with different things like chocolates, fruits, meat. No, I can taste the texture, of course, of the foods that I'm eating, but no taste or smell. None at all. I mean, I'm talking zero. Just now, earlier today, rather, I had lunch and I ate some Oreo cookies. And I didn't, I mean, nothing. It was, I hope this goes away, because it would be a real tragedy to completely lose my sense of smell. Because I mentioned on my Telegram channel, actually, that, or maybe here too as well, I forgot, that about 13 years ago, I got a really nasty cold. And after, I lost about, something like 75% of my sense of smell. It got so bad. I mean, I thought that it would come back, but it never did. And it got so bad that I went to see a doctor, and they gave me a head scan and the whole bit, and the doctor said, no tumor, no brains either. But no, they said, the doctor said that this sometimes happens, and it's unpredictable, and there's nothing to be done about it. And once it goes, it's gone. And, it's just the way it is. And it's just really unfortunate, but that's life, And so the precious little bit of sense of smell that I had left, and taste, because you guys know that taste is so dependent on smell. Well, it looks like it's gone now, like fully gone. I mean, I really won't know for a few weeks, but I mean, how when you take a shower, right? And right after you've dried off, you like roll on your your deodorant, right? And what do you do naturally? You like take a sniff, right? It's perfectly natural. We all do it. You're in the shower, you're without a shirt on. You just like rolled on the deodorant, and you just want to make sure that it's there, sort of like thing, right? I can't smell it. I mean, nothing, zero, and it's a little sad. It's very sad, actually. But like I said, that's life. Anyway, I think I'm better. I feel okay physically, although I have like this weird cough. It feels as if like there's like a tiny bit of liquid in my bronchial tubes that if I cough, sometimes it just doesn't want to come out. You know what I mean? But when I walk in the sun, or if I go into a steam room, which I've been doing as of late in the last few days, it gets loosened up and comes out, right? But okay. I mean, now what if this is COVID? Assume it is COVID. What variant? Who knows? And to tell you the truth, the way things are going with these exams and tests and such, that they one day they say that they're the be all end all, and the next day they rescind them and don't use them now. I mean, who knows? It's so much bullshit. So fuck it. Anyway, those are my health problems, and I'm going to quit yapping now, and I'm going to turn off my camera so you guys can see the PowerPoint presentation. Hang on a second. Let me just get some water because my throat gets a lot drier than usual. Please excuse me. And I'll try to not have a lot of interruptions because of my the after effects of my cold. So anyway, yeah, let's get started. I'm going to turn off my camera and we'll just go on with the presentation. What's going on in South Africa? Now, as a lot of you guys know, you know, over the last few days, over the last 3 weeks now, when was it? It started on July 8th. We're coming up on 2.5 weeks. It'll be 3 weeks this week. We've had just incredible looting, incredible destruction of property, lots of killings and murders going on in South Africa. I mean, pretty much chaos. It's pretty much like the summer of love that the United States just experienced, but, you know, raised up to 11, as they say on Spinal Tap. I mean, really, the amount of violence going on in South Africa is remarkable, and destruction of property, destruction of food supplies and supply chains. This is extremely important. South Africa is going to go through a really, really, really fucking rough patch in the next few weeks. Okay? I mean, forget about the riots. They could end right now. But the destruction because of these riots is going to mean that there's going to be serious food supply shortages and serious problems of transportation. South Africa is descending into a hellhole. South Africa is collapsing. It's collapsing right before our eyes. And the current president, Cyril Ramaphosa, he's a fucking idiot. I mean, he's a fucking retard, okay? I was listening to another commentator who said, you know, when the COVID thing started, Ramaphosa banned the sale of cigarettes and alcohol during the COVID-19 lockdown. I mean, what the fuck? I mean, that's just retardation. There's no reason to ban alcohol. Well, maybe alcohol, but cigarettes? You know, I've never heard of anybody driving under the influence of cigarettes. You know, I've never heard somebody say, oh, yeah, he shot up a store full of people, but it was because, you know, he was under the influence of cigarettes. What the fuck, man? Come on. You know, and the people who smoke the most are working class people. Okay. And they're the ones who suffer the most from stupid bans like that. But okay, Ramaphosa is not really the point of this webinar. The point of this webinar is to draw attention to certain disturbing parallels between the situation in South Africa and the situation in the United States, and to a lesser degree in some of the other Western democracies, the big ones, especially like the UK and Germany. Okay. Now, I am not an expert on South African history. I've never been to South Africa, never been to Africa for that matter. I have been hearing about fucking South Africa since fucking forever, since I was a teenager, you know, all during the 80s, you know, apartheid, it's so evil, apartheid. And the apartheid shit sprang out of fucking nowhere, like around 1983, 84. I mean, really, before that, and I was really into the news when I was younger, when I was, you know, 8, 9 years old. Okay. I would talk with my dad about it and the other adults in my life about the news. I mean, I was interested in it. I thought it was cool. Okay. Do keep in mind that this was the 70s. There was a lot less entertainment going on. And so the nightly news was a kind of entertainment, you know. And I remember Uncle Walter Cronkite, you know, on the tube every day. Okay. He's not my literal uncle. He's what everybody called him at the time. He was the most trusted man in America. And he would read you the news on CBS News every night. And it was a thing that everybody would see. Everybody would watch it, you know. Yeah. And so I noticed that around 1984, all of a sudden, South Africa was a thing. Before then, it had not been a thing at all. Nobody talked about South Africa. Nobody gave a shit. And they said it was, oh, Cape Town is so beautiful, Pretoria is so beautiful, but nobody gave a shit. And then all of a sudden, in 84, it was like a thing. And there were like, you know, concerts and, you know, end apartheid and all this shit, Amnesty International, Live Aid, all this bullshit, right? There was this big concert in Sun City in South Africa. Yeah, it was like a whole to-do, okay? But before this whole shit about apartheid, right, and end apartheid, there was a story of Zimbabwe, also known as Rhodesia, okay? Now, I'm just going to mention Zimbabwe, and I want you to remember it. By the end of this presentation, I'm going to bring back Zimbabwe, okay? Okay. Now, you got to understand South Africa is a multi-ethnic republic. Contrary to popular belief, the first of the current settlers in South Africa were not the Zulus. The Zulus came later. They came in the 19th century. The first settlers were the fucking Dutch. Yeah. And the Dutch were there, and there were the Xhosa people, and these like sort of like weird pygmy people. I forget the names of them right now. Anyway, they got wiped out, and the Zulu were the one who wiped them out. Okay, the Zulu came out of East Africa. They swooped down and they obliterated fucking everything. And the only people they couldn't obliterate were the fucking Dutch, who are hardy as fuck, right? But the Dutch were there first. Never forget that. And then, like I said, in the late 18th century, early mid 19th century, came the Zulu in big waves. And then came the British. The British came in the 19th century. Mm-hmm. And so, but apart from that, there are all kinds of people. Today, there are 11 official languages in South Africa. It's just a whole bunch of fucking people. But for purposes of this discussion, just to make it simple, there are essentially four groups of people. There are the blacks, who as of this year or last year, made up roughly 80% of the population. There's the whites of British descent and of Dutch descent, called the Afrikaners. The Dutch descendants are called Afrikaners. Those of British descent do not consider themselves Afrikaner. They consider themselves British descent. Those white people of whatever country or ethnicity, they are 8% of the population, 8.4 to be precise. The colored population is what they call themselves the mixed race group of people. Mm-hmm. That is half white, half black, and they are roughly 9% of the population. And the remaining 3% are Indian and Asian. Indian, I mean, of course, South Asian from, India. The Indian Asians, they emigrated to South Africa during late 19th century, pretty much the 20th century. Big waves because of Indian independence and shit like that. So anyway, it's not really important for purposes of this discussion. A book that I read years ago that's very, very good to give you like a lot of history of South Africa is a book by James Michener called The Covenant. The Covenant is a big, historical epic kind of book with a lot of information, and it's a fun read. It's really, it's one of those beach house weekend reads. You can finish it off in a couple of days. It's a fun read, and it'll give you a lot of history in a fairly painless way. I would suggest you read it. James Michener, The Covenant. Okay, so in 1948, blacks and coloreds were approximately 65% of the population. The numbers are kind of difficult to suss out because at the time they didn't carry out the kind of racially detailed census that would be done today. But in 48, it was roughly 65% were blacks and coloreds, and whites were about 30%, and 5% for Indians, Asians, and all others. Okay? Keep that in mind. The blacks were a smaller portion of the population. Okay? Or let me phrase that. The whites were a larger segment of the population. Now, the current situation, what's going on, that has been going on since July 8th. There's been severe rioting in KwaZulu-Natal. Please excuse me if I'm mispronouncing it. To all those of you who are South African, my apologies. KwaZulu-Natal is the province on the east. When you look at the map of South Africa, right, it's like a cup. It's like a cul-de-sac. And to the east, facing the Indian Ocean, that's KwaZulu-Natal. Also is sometimes referred to as KZN. The town on the coast, the major town on the coast, is called Durban. And the rep that it has is it's sort of like a Miami kind of multicultural, multi-ethnic, sunny, nice beaches kind of vibe to it, right? That's Durban. Lots of rioting going on there. And in the province of Gauteng, please excuse me if I'm mispronouncing, that's where Pretoria and Johannesburg are. Pretoria is the political capital of South Africa, and just to the south of it is Johannesburg, or is it vice versa? I always forget. I don't have a map in front of me, but it's not important. Johannesburg is the financial capital of South Africa, and it's also the largest city. Now, there has been rioting, looting, just general mayhem. What's important about the looting that's going on is that it's clearly organized. Okay. It is very clear that it's not only organized, but it has specific targets. Because you're seeing how the looters are stealing, refrigerators and big screen TVs. I mean, you fucking see all these Zoom videos and such on YouTube and whatnot, where people are like pushing these enormous refrigerators down the street, stealing them, at 2 kilometers per hour, Excuse me. It's pretty damn funny. But the important thing is not that, not the stuff that they're stealing insofar as, consumer electronics and shit like that. What's important is that the rioters, the looters, have been deliberately targeting food supplies, the supermarkets. There is right now, not 3 weeks into this rioting and looting, there are severe food shortages throughout South Africa. Like I said, Johannesburg is a financial center. It's the largest city in South Africa. It's also the hub for distribution, for food supply distribution. And so with the rioting and looting going on in Johannesburg, the food supply is, everybody's taking a hit. This is going to affect the whole fucking country, okay? And it's starting to affect it now. There are these enormous lines. I've seen several videos of people just like videotaping enormous lines. I'm talking half a mile long of people standing in line patiently trying to buy some fucking bread, okay? This could become a humanitarian disaster. And I'm not exaggerating, because these looters, these rioters, they deliberately targeted supermarkets and food supplies. Also, they deliberately targeted factories and a lot of oil storage facilities. This was terrorism, okay? This is political violence. It's not mere looting, because a lot of people took advantage of the chaos to loot. No, most certainly, and that happens in every looting situation. And the rationale is always very simple, Oh, well, they're looting, they're stealing shit, and if I stand by and just watch and just go tisk tisk, eventually going to steal everything and there's going to be nothing left. So I might as well just dive in and steal something for myself, get some while I can. That's always been the rationale of looters. And the only way to stop looters is to shoot a few. I mean, it sounds really cold-blooded, but that's the truth. When you have a situation where you have looters and rioters, to stop the looting, what you do is you shoot them, okay? In Chile, there was this big earthquake in 1937. And in the town of Viña del Mar, where my family is from, there's a guy called Marmaduke Grove. He was actually the forefather of my cousin's, godmother. Godmother, yes. Anyway, that's not important. Sorry about that. I'm a little foggy still from the cold. Anyway, this guy, when the ship was going down, he was a naval officer. He gathered a bunch of Marines, Chilean Marine infantry, right? He went out on the town and he found like 3 looters, just random. He just picked them up, lined them up against the goal and shot them. Summary execution. Looting ended instantly. And they made him a hero. There's a plaque to his name and the whole thing. Yeah. Because, you say, oh, well, he was a bloodthirsty savage. No. See, a looting situation, the only way to stop it is to not only put out force, like a lot of fucking soldiers with a lot of fucking guns, but you got to shoot a few. It's sort of like, see, when an oil well is burning, do you know how you stop a burning oil well? You roll a wheelbarrow full of dynamite and you blow it up. And you'd say that's counterintuitive. No, what happens is that, I don't quite know the physics of it, but basically you blow up the dynamite and that snuffs out the fire. And that way you can get control over the gusher that is your broken wellhead, okay? In a looting situation, something very similar happens. You got to just shoot a few people at random, and it's very unfortunate. It's certainly unfortunate for the guys you wind up shooting, but it's necessary. Arresting them is not enough. You got to scare the people to get them to stop looting, okay? And why am I bringing this all up? Well, because the South African government of this fellow Ramaphosa, who's a fucking idiot, deployed 25,000 troops, right? Now, you got to keep in mind, this is a huge fucking country, but okay, 25,000 troops, which is really not a drop in the bucket. You should have like put out like at least 100,000 troops. But anyway, he put out these 25,000, but he didn't declare a state of emergency. Ergo, the soldiers can't arrest people. See, that's the whole point of a state of emergency. When you declare a state of emergency, your soldiers are deputized to arrest civilians. Otherwise, they can't. They just stand around and guard shit, but they don't do shit. Okay? And so the rioters, okay, they see like a bunch of soldiers and they say, okay, we're not going to fuck with the soldiers. We'll just fuck with the factory down the street that doesn't have any soldiers. See, this is the problem. It's not enough to deploy soldiers. You got to shoot some fucking people, and they're not doing that. Okay. Anyway, the whole fucking thing happened because they jailed the former president, Jacob Zuma. Now, Jacob Zuma is a piece of work. The old man is 79 years old, and he came up through the ranks of the ANC, the African National Congress. And I'll talk about the ANC in some detail in just a minute. Now, Jacob Zuma, he was originally the deputy president of South Africa from 1999 to 2005. And he was a crony of Nelson Mandela, okay? Now, in 2005, Zuma was dismissed by then President Thabo Mbeki, who had succeeded Nelson Mandela as president. Mbeki dismissed him in 2005 because of corruption, because an aide, a very close aide, I mean, apparently his primary aide, his name slips my mind. I should have written it down, but it doesn't really matter. It's a political scandal in the scheme of things. It's just, graft. They were stealing money hand over fist, right? And not just a little bit. They were stealing like a lot. And Mbeki, I mean, it got to a point. I mean, he's stealing too. They're all fucking thieves. They're all fucking stealing. But it got to a point that it was just too fucking much. So in 2005, they got rid of Zuma. And what did Zuma do? Well, he ran to become president of the ANC, the biggest party, the biggest political party, the premier inter pares of the whole fucking political scene in South Africa, the chutzpah of the fucker. He ran to be president of the ANC and he won. In 2007, he's the president of the ANC. In 2009, he becomes president of South Africa. There was a short interim president between Mbeki and Zuma, but that's not important. Okay, so he was president for roughly 10 years. Now he is fucking corrupt. I mean, that's why they got rid of him in 2005. What, you think he changed his colors? No, come on, man. A cheetah doesn't change its spots, right? Or a jackal doesn't change its spots. This fucker is a grifter, and he stole shit tons of money, okay? And what happened was that on July 8th, for all this the corruption and shit like that. Okay, he eventually left in 2018, and between 2018 and 2021, we had investigation and all this shit, but it's really ANC political infighting. That's what's really going on. It's not about corruption because they're all fucking corrupt, okay? They're all corrupt, but the internal fighting in this uni-party, that is the ANC, and I'll get to what I consider a uni-party in just a bit. Well, it finally came to a head, and on July 8th, they arrested and jailed Jacob Zuma. And that's when these riots started. And a lot of people are saying, oh, it's a reaction to it, it's his supporters. Bullshit. It's not supporters. It's thugs. Zuma thugs. These people are organized. I mean, when they show up in their cars, they've already taken off the license plates. These fuckers are organized. They know exactly what the fuck they're doing. A lot of other people around them, the civilians, if you were, that are just wandering around, they see these looters show up and start to, just like go to town on some factory or some store or some mall or whatever the fuck. And they join in for the reasons I mentioned before, right? But see, the agents provocateur, they are Zuma people. And it's all ANC, inside baseball infighting. God knows what the fuck is going on. And for our purposes, who gives a fuck why? Okay? The important thing is that it's happening. The whole country is going down the fucking tubes. The start of these riots was much, much earlier, all the way to 1994. And as I will not explain, I will argue. This is my point of view, and a lot of people disagree with this point of view, and so you be the judge. But from my point of view, The shit really started in the 5 years from 85 to 1990. Okay? But anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's go piece by piece. 1994, the end of apartheid. Yay, team. You know, all the kumbaya bullshit and YouTube, you know, the band U2 singing their stupid fucking songs about against apartheid and all that crap. Well, they won, right? Apartheid ended. Now, what was apartheid? Okay, a lot of people say that it was basically discrimination against blacks. That's a simplistic view. It was more complex and sophisticated. There were certain aspects, like for instance, that there couldn't be intermarriages and such and such. There couldn't be sexual relations between races. Okay, that you'd say, well, that really goes against the grain of, you know, freedom and whatnot, right? Well, yeah, but from the point of view of the people who created the apartheid system back in 1948, which is when it was implemented, the whole point of it was to maintain some sort of racial harmony and separateness between all these different ethnic groups, because they all hate one another. They hate one another with a passion. They hate one another for all kinds of reasons. And see, in America, it's hard to understand this racial hatred. In certain countries in Europe, same thing. They can't quite understand it. So you have to understand it in the following way, which might help. See, imagine, you know, you're like a fan of the New England Patriots, right? And you hate the Dallas Cowboys, right? But you don't really hate them. You know, if you saw some guy, you know, you're in Worcester in Massachusetts, you're going to go and watch a game of the fucking Patriots, right? And you see some Cowboys fan, you'll laugh. Maybe you'll flip him the bird in jest, as a joke, right? And you know, I mean, you'll be smiling when you do it. And the fucker from Dallas who came up to Worcester to see his team play the Patriots, he'll probably do the same, and he'll laugh and give you a cheers and party on kind of thing, right? But see, imagine if that shit were taken seriously. Imagine if it were like for real, okay? And I'm not talking like British football fans. I'm talking like for real, for real. I mean, like you saw somebody who's like a fucking Cowboys fan. You say, I hate that fucker. I hope he dies. I hope, you know, something bad happens to it. That's the kind of hatred we're talking about, okay? And it's arbitrary. It's based on race, okay? You can't really control which race you belong to, okay? But that's the kind of shit you got to understand, that kind of racial hatred, okay? And I know it seems kind of dismissive to compare it to being a fan of a sports team, but I'm just trying to tell you this so that you kind of like understand how ultimately ridiculous it is, because all the problems that an individual will have is projected onto the other race. That's the point of it, okay? And everybody who has problems, i.e. all human beings, well, instead of like dealing with them or just venting them, you project them out into this other race, whichever other race. The whites didn't like the blacks didn't like the whites, the blacks didn't like the coloreds, the blacks didn't like the Asians didn't like any of the whites or the blacks. Well, they kind of like tolerated the whites, but fucking hell hated the blacks. The coloreds both loved and hated the whites and the blacks because they're white and black, and you know, all this bullshit, okay? What happens with a multi-ethnic society, where you have a modern day state that's trying to smooth out ethnic hatreds and rivalries that go beyond the nation state, that are more powerful than the allegiance of the individuals to the nation state. See what I'm saying? Okay, so in the United States, well, the United States had something similar, and I have to bring this up very briefly so that you keep it in mind for the future. The United States had segregation from, I mean, you could argue it, but it's basically from 1865. You can argue until 1948 when the Army became integrated, or you can argue that it continued on until 1964. It's not really important, okay? The point is that, see, for close to a century, the United States was segregated. But what's important is that the United States, unlike South Africa, is a huge fucking country. And so in a very real sense, it was like two nations in one. The blacks had their own society, their own colleges, their own banks, their own stores, their own everything, separate from the whites. And both races wanted to keep it that way. Do keep that in mind. This is very important. A lot of people in the United States, or a lot of people who study American history, don't understand this, but it's true. Blacks, a lot of blacks, in fact, most blacks, did not want to mix with whites for reasons of their own. You know, racism certainly played a part in it. Also, a desire to be with their own people, that played a part in it. And because the United States was so big, it was possible. But then in the post-war period, with the advent of the car, that brought the whole country closer together. Okay, you got to keep in mind the interstate highway that was created during Dwight Eisenhower's administration in the 1950s, that really made America small. It brought everybody together. And it's kind of inevitable that with the advent of the car culture, especially after the Second World War, the end of segregation was inevitable. And there was also the issue that a lot of companies wanted to tap into the black labor pool in the United States. Because, of course, people were segregated. And so a factory, like say a Ford factory, if segregation was in place, then the Ford factory couldn't hire black workers. Ergo, they had to pay more. But if there's no more segregation and you can hire everybody, in fact, if there are laws on the books saying that you have to hire anybody who's capable, regardless of their skin color, then all of a sudden you have all these black workers. And when you have more on offer of something, what happens to the price of that? It goes down. See? American unions were the ones who were very much opposed to the end of segregation. Never forget that. Because they saw the writing on the wall. With the end of segregation, a lot of black workers would start to take white jobs. And they didn't like that. Okay? So anyway, the important thing is that you remember the United States had segregation up until 1965. There was also a big difference. The black population in the United States has never really crossed the 15% marker. Okay? There have been a lot of Latinos, a lot of Asians, but the blacks in America are consistently about 15%, 18%, 14%. It's fluctuated over the decades. And one of the big reasons for this is abortion. Okay? Abortion rights is what's kept the black population in check in the United States. See? How much is it? Yeah, I do believe it's 1 million black babies are aborted every year. Yeah. Think about that. Yeah. Okay. So anyway, and by the way, keep in mind who pushes abortion rights. But anyway, we'll get to America in just a little bit. The important thing about South Africa, in the late 80s, apartheid was ending. Okay, and it was clear, it was on the wall. Okay, the writing was on the wall because like all kinds of people, United Nations was like putting out declarations, all these fucking concerts of all these fucking pop stars who wanted a bit of attention while pretending to do good. The American sanctions regime, all this shit was hurting South Africa. So the days of apartheid were numbered. There's also something else going on at the time. The blacks were, and the coloreds to a lesser extent, were numerically overwhelming the whites. Because the whites, around the mid-1980s, they were no longer having enough babies to replace themselves. The white population, starting in the mid-1980s, started to shrink. Okay? It has never grown since the mid-80s. And with the emigration of a lot of whites, especially wealthier whites, wealthier, more educated, more capable whites with a lot of capital who have left South Africa and never to return. Elon Musk is an example. Well, the whites are getting smaller and smaller every year now, aren't they? Okay. Now, the ANC, the African National Congress, became the dominant political force in this period of the early to mid 80s. Okay. You got to understand who the ANC were. The ANC was a pro-communist political party that used violence to achieve political ends. Never forget that. There was some massacre in the 1960s, and that's when the ANC decided, fuck this nonviolent Mahatma Gandhi shit. We're going to go full on, Che Guevara, kill them all, let God sort them out kind of thing. Kill them all, let Karl Marx sort them out. Right? And so they were terrorists. I mean, shit, Nelson Mandela was in prison for 27 years. Why the fuck you think he was in prison for 27 years? Because he was a fucking terrorist, because he killed innocent people for his political beliefs in order to advance his political cause. The guy was not a fucking angel. And you see him in pictures, and he's like this doddering old gray-haired man. He looks like Nelson Mandela. I mean, he looks like Nelson Mandela. Of course he looks like Nelson Mandela. He looks like Morgan Freeman, I meant to say. He looks like this gentle guy, such a nice guy. The fucker was in prison for 27 years on a life sentence because the fucker was a murderer, a terrorist. Never forget that. And he was a fucking communist. Okay? He was a communist. And they said so. When somebody says that they're a communist, take them at their word. Believe them. Okay? They're not lying to you. And nobody says to you, oh, I'm a communist just for shits and giggles. Come on. Anyway, what's important is that Nelson Mandela was in prison up until 1991, right? He started serving his sentence in 63, 64, something like that. His wife, Willie Mandela, now she was the only conduit between Nelson Mandela and the outside world, okay? So only these two individuals will know exactly what the fuck happened or how much did Nelson Mandela know and how much he ordered himself. But the fact is, between 1985 and 1990, the ANC, and specifically Winnie Mandela, his wife, and they went to fucking town. They were fucking terrorists. They were terrorizing the whole fucking black community. Not the whites, the blacks. They're getting everybody in line. Famously, Winnie Mandela had a bunch of thugs around her called the Mandela United Football Club. And they would carry out horrific, brutal attacks on any dissident, anybody, any black who stepped out of line, who crossed Winnie Mandela, who was not on board with her program. Winnie Mandela was a very charismatic figure and a very shrewd operator. She knew how to show her face and get everybody on side. She knew how to stand there. I mean, she was a pretty woman, right? I'm talking, she was, in her 50s, I guess, at that time. But she was an attractive woman, and she'd stand there, nicely dressed, nicely coiffed, and she'd raised her left fist in solidarity, like "Viva la Revolucion, motherfucker," and all that shit. And it worked. Everybody lionized her. I mean, I remember in the 80s, everybody talked about Winnie Mandela as the mother of South Africa. That's what they called her, right? It turns out later it's all bullshit. She was a fucking terrorist. She was a bloodthirsty savage, okay? And when I say that she was a bloodthirsty savage, I'm not meaning this in a sexist way or a racist way. I'm talking in an objective way. The Mandela United Football Club, one of the things that they would do, and they invented this, I don't know if they invented this technique, but they certainly popularized it. It was called necklacing. They'd take a tire, a tire from a car, and they'd fill it with gasoline, right? Douse it in gasoline, and they'd drop it on top of their target, and so the tire would go down the guy's shoulders and pin his arms to his side, right? But see, as you go down, because of your waist and your hips, and your arms, you can't get out, you can't do anything. The tire's stuck to you. You need somebody to help pull it off, right? And then you know what these fuckers would do? They'd set the tire on fire. They'd light him up. And the guy would die in agony as the rubber burned, and rubber fucking burns. It burns fucking hot, and it's goddamn hard to put it out. And of course, when rubber begins to burn, it begins to melt, okay? And it melts against the skin of the target. This is called necklacing, by the way. And as it melts, of course, the flesh of the person, the skin, just burns it right off, but it sticks. The burning rubber sticks to people. Sticks to their skin, then sticks to their muscle, sticks to their fucking bone. It's a horrifying way to die. And you die, okay? I mean, unless you get unbelievably lucky. And if you get unbelievably lucky, it's going to be a horrifying recovery because, getting burned, I mean, shit, you probably burned yourself with just a fucking match trying to light a cigarette sometime, huh? Imagine getting, 30% of your body with third-degree burns down to the fucking bone, huh? Imagine that fucking shit. Motherfucker, man. It's horrifying. And that's what Winnie Mandela did. And the thing is, see, let's face facts. Let's call a spade a spade. Nelson Mandela knew about it, and he probably ordered a lot of it. let's face facts. That kindly old man, that Morgan Freeman lookalike, motherfucker, he was a communist terrorist. Never fucking forget that. Now, why was Winnie Mandela indulging in this kind of violence between 85 and 1990? Very simple. Everybody saw the writing on the wall. Everybody saw that apartheid was ending because of all this foreign pressure. It wasn't homegrown, although there were some whites, a lot of whites, who wanted to end it. But, the pressure was really coming from overseas. And also a lot of whites in South Africa wanted to end it so as to end this political and economic pressure. A lot of rich people in South Africa wanted it to end because their interests were being hurt. They weren't allowed to move their capital out of South Africa because of the sanctions regime that was imposed. A lot of South Africans, they could be very, very rich, but they couldn't move capital outside of South Africa. And so they set foot outside of South Africa, and they were as poor as a pauper. Okay? Yeah. And so a lot of rich South Africans wanted to end apartheid so they could have their money and get it out of South Africa, which they did. Okay? Anyway, in the late 80s, the writing was on the wall. And Winnie Mandela and the ANC, they wanted to make sure that the ANC was on top. They wanted to make sure that their party got the credit for ending apartheid. That was the whole point of it. And when they went after their political opponents, they went after the black ones. And they made sure that there was as little press as possible about this shit. A lot of this shit came out later in the 90s. But during the 80s, oh, no. The press, they were all on board. Oh, Winnie Mandela, she's a fucking saint, nonviolence and all this shit, which is a lie. But anyway. Okay, but you got to understand. See, this period of 85 to 90, where the ANC consolidated its power, okay, this was the poison pill of South Africa. The ANC was allowed to become the dominant black party, even though it was violent and it was already corrupt, okay? I mean, it was corrupt not merely in the sense of graft and of corruption, of financial corruption, but corrupt in the sense of doing things. I mean, like, the ends justify the means, and the ends for them was just acquiring power. Ergo, anything would go, including the worst kind of violence, like necklacing, okay? So you got to understand this shit, okay? The roots of this violence, of what's going on now, go a lot deeper, and they're older. It goes all the way back to the formation of this uniparty. Okay. Now, what do I mean by uniparty? I'm going to get to this in just a little bit, but I just want to give you a little preview. A uniparty is basically a party that has complete political control of the country or the region. Think of the Democrats in New York State and New York City, and they control the fucking city and the state. Okay, the Republicans, the opposing party, they don't do anything. They're just around for decoration. Okay, I mean, there was recently the primary for the mayor of the Democratic primary for mayor of New York City, and everybody was paying attention to that primary because they know that whoever wins the primary is the next mayor of New York, because that whole fucking city is going to vote Democrat, because the whole fucking state is going to vote Democrat. It's a uniparty. Okay, the other party, yeah, it nominally exists, but as a practical matter, it has no bearing whatsoever. There is no political competition. Okay, this is important. Okay, so anyway, let's move on. Now, from 1984 to 2018, there was the Mandela, Mbeki, and Zuma period. Okay, and they're all members of the ANC. They were all, let me rephrase that, Mbeki and Zuma, and also Ramaphosa, the current president, the fucking idiot I mentioned before. Excuse me. They're all ANC alums. Mbeki and Zuma were the proteges of Nelson Mandela. Okay? And you know that old saying, the apple never falls far from the tree, right? And Mbeki, Zuma, and Ramaphosa rather, they're all fucking corrupt. They're all fucking corrupt. In the sense of financially corrupt, and also in the sense of politically corrupt. Okay, and that comes from Mandela. And the guy, he's a piece of shit. Mandela, he was a piece of shit. Okay, so anyway, the upshot of this period is that the ANC became the uniparty, the dominant political party among the blacks. And do keep in mind the amount of time we're talking about. It's 27 fucking years that the ANC has been in power. And what does that mean? They are locked in. They're dug in. They're not going fucking anywhere. I mean, everybody from the president all the way down to the lowest, official at the local DMV is either a member of the ANC or has deep ties to the ANC in the sense that they got their job in the government by way of their connection to somebody who's a member of the ANC party. See? The whole fucking country is run by the fucking ANC. The state, rather. Let me phrase that. The state apparatus is controlled by the ANC because everybody's there is either an ANC member or they owe their job to someone of the ANC. And of course, they're not going to do anything to cross the ANC, like arrest somebody of the ANC or try them for corruption or some shit like that, unless there's some sort of party division, which is what's going on with the Zuma thing. Okay. So anyway, in 94, when they took over, they renounced communism. I mean, it was pretty much in the cards. I mean, the Soviet Union had just collapsed, man. What the fuck are they going to be saying? Oh, yeah, man, we're still commies, even though it collapsed in the Soviet Union. Fuck no, man. They renounced communism and embraced market capitalism, neoliberal ideology, really. And the reason they embraced it was basically so that they could get foreign investment from the IMF and other things. You ended apartheid. Here's some money. We'll help you. That kind of shit. Okay. But at their heart, they're still communists. I mean, they still believe that shit. Okay. Once a commie, always a commie. Never forget. I mean, the only time somebody like really renounces communism is when they're like, they're a commie in their teenage years, but then all of a sudden in their early mid-20s, they read up on it, find out a little bit more and realize the horror of communism. And then they're like, fuck no, I'm not a commie anymore. That's the guy you can believe in. Okay. But somebody who's like in his late 30s, 40s, who renounces communism, dude, he's doing it out of what you would call it, self-interest. Okay. Because it's in your early 20s, mid-20s that you discover the history that's been hidden about communism. And you start to realize that communism made the fucking Nazis look like fucking Boy Scouts, for crying out loud. Yeah, the commies, man, they are magnitudes worse than the Nazis. I mean, at least the Nazis, they did their horrifying shit, but they had fucking reasons for it. It was not for no fucking reason that they do shit. Like, for instance, the Holocaust, which is a horrible thing. Nobody's doubting it. But why did they do it? The Nazis said so in the 1C protocols, which you can read anytime. They're online. They looked at various options as to what to do with all these fucking Jews because they realized that there was not enough food to feed the German people, the German army, and these fucking prisoners, the Jews and the Russian prisoners of war. And so they decided, the humane thing is not to starve these poor Jewish people. Let's just murder them. Well, make it efficient. Make it like a factory thing and just kill them all. It'll be the humane thing. They actually thought that, okay? Whether you agree with it or not, that's another question. But, they had a fucking justification. The commies, they just murdered people just for shits and giggles or to fulfill a quota, which is fucking horrifying. Read the Gulag Archipelago. It'll tell you all about it. Alexander Solzhenitsyn said so. And he didn't just merely say so like some fucking oracle. He had proof for it, okay? Testimony, written documentation, sources, as the autists say. He had all that shit. He has it down cold in the Gulag Archipelago. You can read it anytime. And in the Gulag Archipelago, he recounts how many times in Leningrad, modern-day St. Petersburg, the NKVD, the secret police of Stalin at the time, led by Laurentiy Beria, sometimes they were just short of political prisoners, so they just walk around and round up whoever they came across just to meet their fucking quota. Okay? That's communism for you, motherfucker. So anyway, the ANC renounced communism, but they embraced racialism. Now, what's racialism? I should have done a rant on racialism and not on communism versus Nazism. Okay, racialism is basically communism, but instead of class difference, it's racial difference. Okay? Communism is all about class conflict, that there's a conflict between the working classes, the proletariat, and the bourgeois. Okay? And the whole point is to be on the side of the proletariat, get rid of the bourgeoisie, and usher in this beautiful utopia. Okay? It's all so much bullshit, but you get the point, right? Okay, racialism is the same fucking thing, but instead of proletariats and the bourgeoisie, put people of color and white people. The white people, of course, being the bourgeoisie, the evil bourgeoisie, who are the source of all misery for the poor proletariat. I mean, people of color. You know what I'm saying? It's the same fucking thing. Racialism, that's what it is. And by the way, it's a term that I'm using, and I'll probably do a video about it, and define it just to make it easy. Because I'm sick and tired of people talking about, you know, wokeness and equity theory and critical race theory and all this bullshit. It's racialism, okay? It's communism with the class issue struck out and replaced by race. Same fucking thing, okay? So the ANC became racialist. Now, all the other black parties at this point in 1984 had been socially marginalized. It's very important that you understand it. Socially marginalized, not merely politically marginalized, because political marginalization gives you the impression that the ANC was politically better. No, no, no. They were socially marginalized. There was a use of racial guilt to ram through ANC programs as well as raise morale of the adherents. The racial guilt would be directed at other parties. First the other black parties, then the whites. That's how the ANC got power. And if this looks a hell of a lot like the extreme progressive wing of the Democratic Party today, well, yeah, motherfucker. See? They used racial guilt to get on top. Now, of course, the South African media and the international media, for that matter, became loyal to and even was controlled by the ANC. Because you have to remember something that a lot of people 30 years after the fact have completely forgotten. See, in the 1980s, Winnie Mandela, Nelson Mandela's wife, was extremely charismatic and she was all over the fucking place. Nelson Mandela was extremely charismatic and nobody had seen a picture of him since he'd gone to prison in 1963. When he was released in 91, dude, I remember very clearly in June of 91, I was in fucking Chile at the time. I was getting ready to go to Dartmouth. I was starting in September of 91. And in June of 91, all of a sudden he comes out of prison. And it's like, holy shit. And it was like Jesus, a black Jesus had shown up. A black Jesus with gray hair and a kindly smile. Okay? And of course, the fact that he had been a terrorist, a communist terrorist who'd done unspeakably horrible things and who had likely directed his wife to do unspeakably horrible things to his political opponents, that was just glossed over, ignored. Nobody talked about that. Everybody talked about this kindly old man who'd finally been released from prison, finally, for fighting against apartheid. Apartheid! Fight apartheid! End apartheid now! Bullshit, right? Dude, it was huge. And because of that, the South African press, and certainly the foreign press, the global press, they were falling all over Nelson Mandela. The ANC, it was a fucking cakewalk for them. They took over, okay? Now, nepotism and corruption became endemic from the instant the ANC became part of the government, okay? Initially, what happened was that Nelson Mandela became president in 94, and he had de Klerk as the not vice president, not co-president. It was like a deputy president. That was the term. And Mbeki was the other deputy president. And so this triumvirate, they kind of like muddled along until de Klerk went home in 99, I think it was, and Mbeki took over. And Mandela just went to his mansion and kind of like pulled the strings from afar. He also, in this time, divorced Winnie Mandela. And we'll never know the circumstances of that whole divorce because, a lot of secrets were known by Winnie Mandela. But she had grown to be so hated that she had become a political liability to Nelson Mandela. It's very possible, and indeed it's likely, that he got rid of her, divorced her. He didn't kill her, by the way. She died of natural causes in 2018. I think he probably got rid of her because she was just more trouble than she was worth at that time. Okay? Because Nelson Mandela was trying to look to be the elder statesman and all that shit, and giving speeches at the UN and all that good garbage. You know what I mean? Anyway, the nepotism and corruption started instantly when the ANC became part of the unity government in 1994. Okay? Hang on a second. Okay. What happened was that the ANC permeated all the levels of the government, and because there was no political competition, they became the monopoly player insofar as political power. And inevitably, not only did you have nepotism and corruption, but you had bureaucratic entropy. What do I mean? Well, see, when you have a bureaucracy, you have to have people who more or less know what the fuck they're doing, right? If they don't know what they're doing, then your bureaucracy is not going to do the things that you're paying taxes for them to do. Think about it, right? See, you have like some moron who's running your Department of Transportation, right? And this moron, this minister for public transportation, gets rid of all the capable people and puts in all his cronies so that they can all have a job, they can all have some money and all that shit. So he can, and he'll also, skim 10% of their salary or whatever the fuck, right? And so what happens? Well, you have all these fucking morons who don't know what the fuck to do. And so all of a sudden, all those potholes that you have in your country, in your streets, in your avenues and whatnot, they don't get fixed because nobody knows how to fucking do it. Because the people who are in charge, they're fucking morons. Because they're there, not because they're any good, but because it's political payoff, nepotism, corruption. And so the bureaucracy begins to decay. And so the country, the infrastructure of the country begins to decay. And that's what happened from day one. Yeah. Anyway, the ANC's racialism, like I said before, it's basically SJW equity culture. Any racial disparity is the result of racism. There is no other reason. Okay? And that's the core tenet of racialism, of SJW culture, of equity culture, critical race theory bullshit. All these things, they're all basically the same fucking thing, right? This racialism, every disparity is because of racism. There can be no other explanation. Therefore, in order to solve racism, you have to have racial quotas everywhere. I'm not talking just in the fucking government, okay? You get rid of all the white people, or as many white people as you can, until you have only 8% whites and all the other 80% are blacks. It doesn't matter how ignorant and incompetent they might happen to be. So long as they're loyal party members of the ANC, it's all good. See? They also impose this shit on private boards of directors of companies, of private companies. See? There are laws in South Africa's books where you have to have a racially equitable board of directors. And what the fuck you think happens there? These fucking morons, and not because they're black, but because they don't know what the fuck they're doing, they're put there by the ANC or some other mechanism, whatever the mechanism. And they basically realize that what they have to do is that they have to sell their vote on the board of directors of whatever company they're on. Either the ANC pays them good money, or the more capable people, or perhaps the owners of the company, have to pay them off under the table to make sure that they do the right thing in terms of the votes of the board of directors. So you see what starts to go on. The whole fucking thing starts to collapse and decay because you're putting incapable, incompetent people in positions of power for no other reason than because of the color of their skin. And you are removing capable people from positions of power for no other reason than because of the color of their skin. Okay? That's racialism. That's what ANC did from 94 until today, and they're still doing it. Okay? Now, ANC's racialism encouraged resentfulness among blacks, which has led to violence against whites and Indians. Okay? You've heard like Lauren Southern, she did like a documentary, fairly good one called Farmlands. And she talked to a lot of white farmers, man. And if you're a white farmer, I mean, you're fucking crazy. A white farmer in South Africa, it's only a matter of time before you get attacked, brutally, viciously attacked, for no fucking reason by black gangs. Now, why are they attacking? Well, see, suppose, for the sake of argument, that you're left-handed, right? And you're left-handed, and it doesn't matter your skin color, you're just left-handed. And, you don't get girls, and, you don't have that much money. And I come up one day and I say to you, you know why you don't get girls and you're kind of broke and your life is kind of like a shithole? It's because you're left-handed. Because all these other fuckers who are right-handed are putting you down, motherfucker. Yeah. They're the reason that your life sucks. And what are you going to do? Are you going to listen to me? Fuck yeah. Because it's so much easier to look around at other people and blame your problems on other people than to look at yourself in the mirror and say, how come I can't get any pussy? How come I can't get any green? Why? Is it the society or is it me? If somebody comes along and says, yeah, it's because they're discriminating against you because you're left-handed. Dude, all your problems are solved, psychologically speaking. You can channel your anger at your bad fortune at those fuckers who are right-handed. Those right-handed motherfuckers are why it all sucks. Have you noticed how you have to write from left to right? But if you are left-handed and you write from left to right, your hand gets smeared with ink. That's part of the fucking conspiracy of these right-handed motherfuckers. We got to kill all those motherfuckers. That's what we got to do. We got to find every right-handed dude and chop their fucking right hand so that they'll know what it's like to be left-handed, motherfucker, by hook or by crook. Yeah. You see, I mean, it sounds kind of crazy, but that's the way of human nature. Okay? People just love to point to others to all their problems. And like I said at the beginning, in a multi-ethnic society, this is fucking inevitable because everybody's got fucking problems. And it's easy to point to somebody else and say, oh yeah, my problems is because of those yellow people or those black people or those white people or those purple people, right? Fuck yeah. It's always easier. The right-handed people did it. Me, I'm just a poor southpaw. I never hurt a soul, but those right-handed people, they're the ones that got to get it coming. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So the ANC's racialism, by encouraging resentfulness, also does a neat trick. Whenever they fuck up, the ANC fucks up, they just pull out this racial resentment shit, and they rile up their base, and their base forgets about the fuck up they committed. And on the other hand, they bring up the whole racial shit and apartheid, and what happens with the whites? They shut the fuck up because they feel guilty. See? That's how it fucking works, man. That's racialism. So anyway, the ANC's political failures can be masked by vilifying and persecuting whites, as I explained. And and insofar as the current troubles in South Africa, they're basically internal fighting within the ANC, using looters to pressure the government not to prosecute Zuma. Look, I am not even going to try to pretend to understand what the fuck is going on inside the ANC insofar as Zuma and Ramaphosa and all this shit. Okay, Mbeki is thrown in there too, and there's a faction there and some other fucking factions. Dude, it's like, it's a rabbit hole, man. Resentments, hatreds that go back decades within people who were used to be partners, man. And so, they all hate each other. And so to go down that rabbit hole, good luck to you. I'm not going to bother because, dude, why? It's just a bunch of fucking retards, flinging shit at one another, flinging their own shit and any shit they happen to come across, right? So that's what's going on. Now, the thing that you have to, if you want to bottom line a situation, you got to ask, what was things like back in the day before these fuckers showed up, and what's it like today? Now, in 2020, we had the whole shit show of COVID. Okay, so let's leave aside 2020 and just focus on 2019. What was the South Africa of 2019 versus the South Africa of 1994? Well, today, it's significantly worse, or 2019, significantly worse. The population in 94 was 40.56 million versus 58.56 million in 2019. That's an increase of 44.37%, okay? Just shy of 50%. The GDP in adjusted dollars in 2019 dollars was 140 billion. Now, get this. In 2011, it peaked out at 417 billion. But it declined after that. It declined precipitously. In fact, it bottomed out at a little over 300 billion and then bounced back to 351 billion in 2019. And then that number went off a cliff because of the 2020 lockdown, right? But that's why I'm just limiting myself to 2019. See, these fuckers, it wasn't like a straight line. Most other economies, even shitty economies, even crappy countries like Chile, for instance, it's fairly stable, predictable line, okay? Yeah, sometimes GDP flatlines a little bit, when you have like some major financial crisis, like in 2008 or some shit like that. But no, the yo-yoing of the GDP of South Africa is because of ANC mismanagement and corruption, just fucking things up. That's why. South Africa is an exceedingly rich country. It's rich in natural resources. It's got a very educated population compared to the rest of Africa, but they fucked it up. Yeah, they're nowhere near where they should be. I mean, realistically, they should be, comfortably in the 2/3 to 3/4 of $1 trillion. Okay. I mean, if this fucking country had been fucking Chile, that's where they'd be at. Okay. But no, 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 no. They fucked it up. Now, the official unemployment for the first quarter of 2021 is 32.6%. A third of the working age population is fucking unemployed. The youth unemployment, okay, is supposed to be officially 46%. But I mean, nobody's really going to know. And to argue with the government figures, well, you got to know. But reading around, a lot of people who seem to know what the fuck they were talking about seem to settle on the figure of 66% for real youth unemployment. That is 2/3 of young people are out of work. They're just doing nothing. They're just farting around. They're fucking looting. Okay. Yeah. And by the way, I forgot to mention this thing. A lot of people say that the looting is out of desperation. No, no, no. I mean, they're desperate, sure. But the looting, no, it's just fucking violence. It's political violence. Never forget that. The ANC is all about political violence. And they have always operated with political violence. That's how they roll. Simple as that. Okay, so about South Africa between 1994 and 2019. Pre-COVID, the racialist policies of the ANC drove away foreign investment. It also drove away the more capable people, both black and white, I'll have you know. Because it's quite obvious that, the richer South Africans would get the fuck out of Dodge. Yeah, I mean, what the fuck, man? You got these crazy ANC commies who are saying that eventually they're going to take your shit, and they're forcing you to have these ANC loyalists on your board of directors, right? Like quasi-nationalizing your own fucking company, right? What the fuck are you going to do? You're going to get the fuck out of there. You got any kind of capital, you're going to move it. And of course, if you have any kind of capital, i.e. over 10 million, then you're going to know some lawyer who knows some other lawyer in Great Britain or the United States or Canada or wherever the fuck that can get you a permanent visa in those countries. And that's that, motherfucker. You don't even have to get another passport. On your South Africa passport, shitty though it may be, if you got the right connections and you got the cash, the capital, I mean, if it's definitely in the 8 figures and above, you're set. You can go anywhere. Yeah, of course. I mean, think of it from the point of view of Great Britain or Ireland. Ireland's big on this, or Switzerland, right? If you show up to Switzerland, you show up to Geneva, and you go up to Julius Baer and say, hey, motherfucker, I can bring you, 40 million cash. Julius Baer is going to smile, take your fucking money, and they will personally walk you down to the Swiss Ministry of Foreign Affairs and make sure that you get a permanent visa for fucking Switzerland. Fuck yeah. Of course they're going to do that, okay? So the rich white people got the fuck out of Dodge. Elon Musk, anybody, right? And those fuckers, they're never coming back. But also a substantial number of educated blacks got the fuck out of there because of the ANC. Because the corruption of the ANC rewarded party loyalists, okay? And so it wasn't enough that you had to be black to get help from the ANC. You had to be a party loyalist. So what happens if you're like some smart black engineer, right? An engineer, whatever the fuck. You're not a member of the ANC, or God forbid you had a run-in with the ANC and don't fucking like them, and they know this, right? You're up shit's creek. You're not going to get any fucking job. But you can get a job in Nigeria, Namibia. You can go to all kinds of places in Africa, and they'll welcome you with open arms because you're an educated motherfucker from a reputable university in South Africa. Although that's going down the tubes now because South African universities, as of the last 10 years, are garbage. And if you look around on YouTube, there's this really famous video of some moron, imbecile South African student, some black chick who's saying some bullshit about white white evilness, the typical critical race theory bullshit. I mean, and she's talking about fucking magic, man. I'm not fucking kidding. That there's like powerful voodoo magic or some shit like that. It's fucking hilarious as fuck until you realize that this is fucking for real, man. And one of the best universities in South Africa, man. Come on. And so the educated blacks, they've split. They're not fucking stupid. If they're not affiliated with the ANC, why would they stay? Huh? They're not going to get a fair shake because the ANC is fucking corrupt. Okay, then. Because bottom line, and this is the key issue, the ANC doesn't care about making South Africa a better country. All they care about is maintaining power and skimming the nation while they do. That's all they care about. And you got to understand this, see? Because, see, when you have a party that will stop at nothing to maintain power, power becomes an end in itself. All your principles, everything you believe in, you're willing to throw them by the wayside so long as you maintain power and you get yours, money-wise. And so, yeah, that's what's happened with the ANC. They've been in power for 27 years. And this is the result. It's a crapola nation. It's just a piece of shit. And all the smart people, all the capable people, all the people with money, they split. They know what's what. Yeah. One of the people I've been noticing is Casey Neistat, the YouTuber. He's married to some woman whose father is or was a doctor in South Africa. I mean, the woman he's married was South African, but she's been in the States so long that now she's American. But anyway, this doctor fellow, right? He was South African, talks like a South African. He's Jewish. And what happened was that he was in South Africa. In fact, Neistat got married in South Africa, which makes sense, of course, right? But what happened very quietly with no announcement, all of a sudden his father-in-law, when he appears sporadically and every so often in his videos, he's now living in Houston or LA. I forgot. I think LA. Yeah. Yeah, they split. They just quietly left South Africa. All the people who can have left South Africa. Why would they stay? Of course not. See? Because ANC doesn't give a shit about South Africa. Okay? This is what happens when you have a uniparty system. A uniparty system that is racialist. Those are the two key components. On the one hand, it's one party that views it as acceptable to do whatever is necessary to get and hold on to power. And on the other hand, their principal ideology is racialism. They use racial resentment and racial guilt to paper over any mistakes or flaws or scandals that they might have and direct their supporters to attack a racial minority and put that racial minority on the back foot. In the case of South Africa, of course, it's the whites. The whites are being persecuted. And to say otherwise is just, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about, motherfucker. They are persecuting them. They're also persecuting the Indians and the Asians, by the way. Because the blacks in South Africa, they fucking hate them. But again, everybody hates everybody over there. Multi-ethnic societies don't fucking work. They never have. They never have. Okay? The only time that they work is when you have like an absolute ruler on top of the whole fucking thing, whipping everybody in line. And anybody who starts looting, they just put them up against the wall and shoot them. Okay? That's the only time a multi-ethnic regime works. Otherwise, you get fucking chaos and a uniparty. A uniparty that finds it incredibly tempting. You got to understand the temptation here. Okay? It's not that they're fucking evil. It's tempting. I mean, let me put it to you this way. See, you catch me putting my hand in the till, in the money box, right? I mean, you catch me in flagrante delicto, right? And I'm gonna get punished. I'm gonna get in trouble, and it's all kind of misery for me, right? So what I say? I say, "Cabron, man, you don't get it. Me, I come from barrio, man. I don't have food. I don't have nothing, man. Nothing. Not even money for cigarettes, cabron. And so I have to take, man, because it's the white man. The white man, he keep me down, cabron. Chingaja. You know, if it weren't for the white man, I wouldn't have to steal. I'd be a good boy. I'd be a good boy. Yeah, cabrón. Sí. Yo sería bueno, cabrón. Cabrón, I be a good boy and I never steal. But the white man, the white devil, he make me steal because he steal all my stuff with his cultural appropriation and his systemic racism and shit. Yeah, cabron. It's not me. It's the white man. And you fucking moron, you believe this shit. So who's at fault? Me for pulling this bullshit stunt? Or you, the fucking moron, who believes it? Huh? I mean, ask yourself, who's at fault here? Seriously, this is not I am being dead serious here. Okay? Who's at fault? Huh? Me for stealing and then using this bullshit to excuse away and get away with theft, or you who believed it? Hmm? Quite obviously, blame. There's enough blame to go around, right? But the way I look at it, a thief is a thief, but a fucking imbecile, there's no forgiveness for that. So anyway, let's move on. This is South Africa, and South Africa is fucked. Okay, I forgot to put this in the outline. I'll say it right now. Hang on a second. The problem with South Africa is that, see, like I said at the beginning of this broadcast, holy shit, we've gone like over almost 80 minutes now, but no, well, you all know that I'm a long-winded bastard, so fuck you very much, and you're just gonna have to take it, right? Without lube, right from behind. Do you feel me? Sorry, man. I'm a little punch drunk. Anyway, oh shit, what was the point I wanted to make before moving on to the States? Oh yeah, South Africa isn't going to recover from this shit. Okay, like I said earlier, there's going to be a humanitarian crisis. I mean, it's on the way. It's already there. There are a lot of people who are suffering. I mean, really suffering. Families, people with small children, they don't have food. See, you and I, we're adults. Okay, now I can go. Well, fuck it. I went on a water fast once. I went 13 fucking days without eating a single morsel of food. Not one fucking morsel for 13 fucking days, almost 14, 13 and a half days. Okay? Without one fucking bite of food. Okay? I can do that. No problem. Oh, well, it's not going to be easy, but I can do it. A child? I mean, a 4-year-old child, let alone an infant. Come on, man. And, if it were to happen to me that, I can't get food because there's no food supply, I'd be like, oh, God, well, at least I'll go on a diet and lose some weight and look hotter than I already am, right? That's what I'd be thinking. But if I have a child to feed, dude, I'm going to pick up a weapon. It could be a machine gun or a machete or a fucking pen, whatever weapon I can get. And I'm going to go hunting for food because my fucking kid is starving. This is the shit that's happening in South Africa right the fuck now. This is happening now, motherfucker. And of course, see, the real effects of this destruction, they're going to be apparent within the next month or so. See? Because when you destroy infrastructure, especially supply chains, it takes a long fucking time to rebuild them. Okay? It's not, snap your fingers and it's all better. No, it's not like a Band-Aid to fix the boo-boo. No. This kind of shit can kill a country. No problem. This is serious shit. A lot of people wonder, there was a coup d'etat in Chile, right, in 73. And how did it happen? I mean, what was the approximate trigger? Well, there was a trucker strike. See, in Chile, you've seen a map of Chile, of course. It's a very long country. And so, in the center south, roughly, of the country, that's where the food production is. But there are people in the center and the north and the deep south and whatnot. And to get to those people, well, you got to have truckers who are going to drive that fucking food all the way to the north of Chile. The north of Chile is a whole fucking desert. But you have all these cities on the coast that are actually very important financially, commercially, economically to the health of the nation. They got to be fed, right? In 1973, in what was it? Well, there were several, but the last one was in August of 73. Truckers went on strike. And people started actually having no food. I mean, starving. Okay. And that's when the military was like, enough of this shit. We're done with this shit. That's that. And they went ahead and just did the coup. Yeah. Because see, when people can't get food because the supply chain has been interrupted for whatever reason, dude, that's some serious shit. And that's what's happening now in South Africa. And you think that shit is bad now. You wait. It'll get a lot worse in South Africa. A lot worse before it gets any better. Unless, in South Africa, they wake the fuck up, which I doubt it. See? Because like I said, The ANC doesn't give a shit about the people of South Africa so long as it's getting its power and its money. So, Zuma and his fucking goons, they're going to fuck up the whole fucking country. No different from Winnie Mandela back in the 80s. Yeah, that's what's going to happen. And you're going to see people starving to death in fucking South Africa. Yeah, it's because it's fucking happening now, motherfucker. With those lines that are half a mile long of people waiting for food, waiting for hours in the hot fucking sun for food. And it's fucking winter there. Okay? Wait till it gets to be summer when it's really fucking hot. Now we're talking. This is serious shit that's going on in South Africa. Okay? And South Africa is on the very precipice of being a completely failed state. I'm talking Libya level. Okay? It could get to that level, no problem. Okay, so that's South Africa. Now, let's talk about the similarities of South Africa to the United States. So, like I said before, the United States was also an apartheid regime until 1964. Racial guilt was what was used to end it, just like in South Africa. And racial guilt and racial resentment are the twin weapons of racialism that have been being inflicted, especially more as of late. Now, racial preferences started in 1965. Affirmative action. It's racial preferencing. That's what it is. It wasn't that bad initially. But it's gathering speed. It's gotten worse and worse, okay? Precisely to the degree that the United States is a less racist society. Because in 65, you could argue that the United States was pretty racist, but today, not really, okay? But see, racialist ideology needs to posit that the country is racist, in order to achieve their goals, in order to achieve power, okay? Now, racialism, critical race theory, equity theory, wokeness, all that bullshit, has become stronger with all the differences in outcome blamed on racism, on all other explanations and nuances being dismissed, just like the ANC back in the day. The party wielding racialism uses racial guilt to cow and silence and discredit any and all political opponents, which is what's happening on the left and the Democrats, right? Right now, the racialists, they're consolidating power within the Democratic Party. And they're wiping out anybody who thinks different, i.e. the moderate Democrats, okay? Pretty soon, the racialists will have full control of the Democratic Party. A lot of people say that they already do. They don't. There are still pockets within the Democratic Party and the left of center people who still don't quite buy this racialist bullshit. But whenever they raise their hand with even so much as a wrong-minded question, they get hit with the "you're a racist, so you're a racist. Is that why you're asking that?" Line, and they shut the fuck up because nobody wants to be called a racist because of racial guilt. Okay, and at the same time, you have all these racial minorities that are becoming more and more radicalized because the racialists are saying that all their problems are because of racism, not because of their first of all, not because most people's lives are misery, because that's the truth. Most people don't get what they want. Most people have a shitty life. Okay? Yeah, it's always been that way. Okay? Not now. I'm talking 100 years ago, 1,000 years ago, 5,000 years ago. It's always going to be shitty. We're never going to be people who are happy with what we got. We're always unhappy. I mean, you talk to Bill Gates, he's like the richest guy in the fucking world. He's probably unhappy. You talk to Jeff Bezos, he just went on a fucking dick-shaped rocket. He's probably unhappy about something, and he figures that, woe is me, my life sucks. I'm Jeff Bezos. I'm literally the richest man in the world who just flew on his own private rocket ship, but, I'm not getting what I want. That's the standard situation with people. We're never happy with what we got. But see, the racialists take this very normal unhappiness that we all have and redirect it into resentment towards white people. And every unhappiness that you have is because of white people. And that's what the minority is doing in the United States. The minority within the Democratic Party, who will soon be the majority, okay? Because this shit is taking over like a fucking cancer, okay? Now, the media has become beholden to and controlled by the racialist uniparty. In the United States, fuck yeah. I mean, all these fucking people in the news and such, CNN, MSNBC, Wall Street Journal, New York Times, Washington Post. Well, Wall Street Journal maybe to a lesser extent, but still on the way, I mean, The Wall Street Journal, man, they've always been rhinos, you know? They've always pretended to be right wing, but they're really just want to make money. Okay. But the others, they're all on board with this shit, with this bullshit, racialism, you know? And they are, the media discredits opponents or plays down the failures of the racialists or distracts from a scandal of the racialists, you know? Now, the uniparty, the racialist uniparty, is using violence from organized thugs to intimidate political opponents, just like the Mandela United Football Club that Winnie Mandela ran in the late 80s. Yeah, that's Antifa today. The summer of 2020, the racialist riots, they were started by Antifa. A lot of people joined in, of course, you know, fuck yeah, fight racism, and yeah, it's exciting. Come on. I mean, I've been in a riot a few times in Chile. It's fucking fun. Yeah, fuck yeah, to go on a riot. I once went to on a pro-Pinochet protest, and then like 2 days later went on an anti-Pinochet protest. And both times, you know, it was like a quasi riot, and it was great. You know, I had a great time, and I met some really hot chicks. The pro-Pinochet chicks were like really pretty, but they didn't put out. Whereas the anti-Pinochet chicks, they were scruffier, but they'd fuck. So yeah, I mean, the pro-Pinochet girls, maybe you'd get a blowjob. But with the anti-Pinochet girls, you know, you go all the way, as it were, you know? So, yeah, riots are fun. So people join in. But see, you need a group that starts it. You need an organized group. And you all saw all those videos of riots happening here and there in the different cities. And there'd be these pallets of bricks, like pre-positioned. Where the fuck did you think that came from? It just like magicked itself there? No. Is fucking organized by either the Democratic Party or, much more likely, people who are funding the Democratic Party and who are adherents to the Democratic Party, to the progressive wing of the Democratic Party, the racialist wing of the Democratic Party, but there's sufficient distance for plausible deniability. Well, that's what's going on. Now, the racialist uniparty is corrupt, but the corruption is excused as being either necessary to fight racism, i.e. crooked elections, because the 2020 election, it was crooked. It was bent as all get out, okay? And it's coming out. And you'll see that they're going to explain it away. They're saying, yeah, well, you know, they did cheat and they did fabricate 74,000 votes in Maricopa County, but it was necessary to save democracy, to fight racism. That's fucking corruption, motherfucker. You can explain it away all you want, but yeah, it's a crooked election. And you're explaining away as necessary to fight? No, it's necessary so your party could win. Get power at any cost. Okay? That's one excuse for corruption. And the other excuse for the graft, they'll say, oh, it's not important. The real scandal is racism. See? Like I did with my bit from before, you know? I have my hand in the till, but I blame it on racism, and you're dumb enough to say, okay. See? That shit happened in the ANC, and that shit's happening now. All of these things that happened with the ANC in South Africa are happening in the States now, and also in Great Britain now. Okay? And finally, you're seeing the Uniparty using the state's security services to intimidate and persecute dissidents and opponents. And that's some serious shit. And you're seeing that now. Now, just like South Africa's ANC, the Uniparty in the United States is willing to destroy the country in order to remain in power. That's ultimately the thing that just pushes it over the edge. That's where you realize that this shit is a cancer. See? It's not merely some people who really are bent for leather on having power because they have this great agenda or whatever. No. For them, it's power as an end in itself. The fact that they're willing to burn cities like they did in 2020, in the summer of 2020, that proves it. See, if you care about a country, you're not going to allow even one fucking tree to burn. But if you don't give a shit and all you care about is power, let them burn, motherfucker. If it gets Trump out of office and it gets the Democrats in, let them burn. Hell, don't let them burn. Help them be burned. And you know, a country, you look at cities in the United States that have had racial riots like Newark and such, Detroit, they never recover. Baltimore, they never recover. Okay. I mean, Newark was burned in like the late 60s. I think it was 67. It never recovered. Newark was a healthy industrial city. It had a thriving community. It was like a going concern. But after the race riots of 67, it was dead. And it never recovered. Same with Detroit. I mean, Detroit has like car manufacturers and shit like that. But as a city with small businesses, little restaurants, shit like that, no. Because once you burn down a city, people are too scared to open a business. Because it burned once. Who's to say it won't burn again? And you don't want to be around to find out. You don't want to invest all your capital, your financial capital, but much more importantly than that, your emotional capital into building a little store or a restaurant in some city like that. If it burned once, who's to say it won't burn again? So I'll go someplace else. And that's what happens. And it's not just cities, it's countries. South Africa is burning. And yeah, right now it's just limited to 2 provinces, but the effects of it are going to be throughout the country. And once these effects start hitting the rest of the country, the rest of South Africa, you're going to see more and more rioting in those cities. Not from Zuma thugs who are going to be out there sparking violence. No, it'll be spontaneous. And that violence will be spontaneous because it'll be people who don't have food for their kid. They don't have oil, they don't have water, they don't have whatever the fuck is necessary, not just the fucking latest iPhone or some shit like that. I'm talking about shit that you actually need on a daily basis. Food, principally, or running water. This shit, it's going to be, the whole fucking country is going to go up in flames because of this shit. Okay? It's all because the ANC, they have an internal conflict between Zuma and the other factions, and they're lighting the whole fucking country on fire because they so want to remain in power. Remember Zimbabwe. Okay, what happened in Zimbabwe? Well, Zimbabwe was the breadbasket of Africa. Yeah, it just fed a lot of fucking people. It had, just like South Africa, a black majority and a white minority. The white minority ran shit, and they ran it pretty well. But then, you got some fucking communists. They took over the whole fucking thing in the 70s and 80s. And the whole thing went down the tubes. Zimbabwe, everybody remembers their fucking currency that hyperinflated, and you get like a bill for $1 trillion Zimbabwean dollars or whatever the fuck it was, and it couldn't buy you a slice of bread. I mean, not even a cup of coffee, let alone a slice of bread, man. I mean, that's how bad the hyperinflation was in Zimbabwe. It's a fucking joke. It's funny. I know a lot of people who paid good money to get one of those $1 trillion bills. Not, of course, to do anything other than frame it because it was fucking funny, I knew, I'm thinking, man, I had forgot about this, but there was this one guy I knew who splurged like $100 to get himself like a $1 trillion Zimbabwe bill. And he framed it. Yeah, because he thought it was fucking funny, yeah, it was more valuable as a tchotchke than what the price was printed on it, right? And of course, it would just be economic geeks who'd be interested in that. The other thing that people don't talk about, of course, is that, see, Zimbabwe went from being the breadbasket of Africa to being a nation so poor that they had to emergency airlift food to it. A country that before had been feeding most of East Africa, okay? A country that was rich in farmland, in soil. It had, before this whole mess in Zimbabwe, which is similar to what happened in South Africa, it had like the infrastructure, it had everything going for it. The whites in Zimbabwe, formerly Rhodesia, they'd set up the shit really well, but they couldn't keep it together. The communists came, fucked it all up. Zimbabwe, from being the breadbasket of Africa, they're starving. Recently, like the Zimbabwean government, put out all these feelers to all the white farmers who had split, begging them to return. When some of them returned, they had like a fucking parade when they showed up at the airport. Not kidding, okay? Like the white savior come to save Zimbabwe, after 20 odd years of being fucking destitute and miserable and just a joke of a country, just completely just ruined, right? Okay, it happened in Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe is the test run for South Africa. And South Africa is following exactly what Zimbabwe did. Okay, a uniparty You demonized the whites, drove the whites away. The whole fucking thing went down the tubes. You know, I mean, killed a whole bunch of whites until finally the whites realized, what the fuck are we doing? We're going to just split, right? And so they split from Zimbabwe. The South Africans today, what the fuck you think is going to happen with the whites? The whites are not fucking stupid. Are not that fucking stupid, the ones who still remain. Because the smart white people, they split a while ago, right? The dumb ones remain. The dumb and the poor. The poor, they're going to get fucked, and they'll probably be persecuted, and a lot of them murdered, butchered. You know, like a fucking genocide. And, you know, I forget the name of the son of a bitch, of the EFF, some South African, one of these piddly little factions, right? He said, you know, we're not going to kill the South African farmer yet. Dude, man, it's in the cards. They're going to butcher those fuckers. It's going to be a fucking genocide. Okay? Yeah. They're going to butcher all the white people just because they're white, you know, as an expression of racial resentment. And they're going to just get it out of the system, kill all the white people, and all of a sudden, they're not going to have people who run shit. And I'm not saying that the blacks can't run shit. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying that the white people who do run shit, well, they're going to be, and they have been, stripped of their authority and replaced by nepotistic cronies of ANC functionaries who don't know what the fuck they're doing and have fucked everything up. I mean, I wouldn't have an objection, and we wouldn't be having this fucking webinar if all the white people who were capable had been booted and replaced by black people who are capable, because there are such people. Those fuckers, the capable black people, have left South Africa too. They've gone to other countries, as I said before. No, the problem that we're having is that the smart people, the smart white people, were replaced not by dumb people who were black or black dumb people. No. They were cronies who happened to be black. It's irrelevant that they're black, quite frankly. It's what matters is that they're cronies. And cronies, that kind of corruption, spells doom for any kind of sophisticated infrastructure. And that's what happened in Zimbabwe. That is what is happening currently in South Africa. And that is what's sort of happening in the United States. The only difference being, of course, is that the blacks are the minority and the whites are the majority. And this shit is happening. South Africa is the future of America and potentially Britain as well. Because a lot of problems that are going on in South Africa, a lot of problems that are going on in America, they're also happening in Great Britain. Okay? And so, you know, this shit is on its way. And the problem, of course, is that this twin thing of racial resentment to stir up your base and racial guilt to put the whites on the back foot, these twin powers, they're like fucking superpowers. Okay? And I can't think offhand of anything that can stop these two superpowers from Satan, because they really are. Okay? Because they rile up people and get them hating on whites and get the whites in a defensive crouch that they can't respond to this shit, even though it's objectively not true. The whites are not racist. There is no such thing as fucking systemic racism. That's bullshit. Okay? Anybody who says that there's systemic racism in the United States doesn't know the definition of the word systemic or the definition of racism. They don't fucking know it. Okay? But anyway, this is how it's happening in the States. And from my point of view, there's no solution. There's simply no solution. And so my thinking is that over the next few months, we're going to see South Africa completely implode, and it's going to be a sight to behold. And I think that I think it is possible. I'd say it's a 40% likelihood, if I had to lay odds, that there is a sudden white genocide where they just go around butchering every white person that they come across. The mob, the thugs, whoever it is. But they just, you know, it hits a tipping point of desperation that they just go after blacks and you know, ethnically cleanse South Africa of every white person. I would give odds of 40% of that happening before the end of the year. Okay, I'm not kidding, and it sounds horrifying, but I think it's going to happen. Yeah, or let me phrase it. I think it's 40% likelihood it happens. I hope it doesn't, but I would be not surprised if it did. And that shit is going to happen in America. And the thing is, see, if everything that is going on in South Africa, I'd seen that, say, 2 years ago, back in 2019, before the whole COVID fiasco, right? I would have said, yeah, maybe it'll happen in America in like 10 years. But now, 18 months. Especially if the economy goes tits up and there's hyperinflation of the dollar. Yeah. I mean, if the dollar hyperinflates, that means that everybody's going to be dirt poor. Nobody's going to be able to afford shit. Okay. And people are going to be destitute. Okay. I mean, I remember the 70s, the late 70s with stagflation. That was no fucking joke. And the economy was chugging along. Okay. And not great. The inflation was double digits, but not the end of the world. And it was bad. It was bad then. Imagine now with this gig economy, with the service sector economy, i.e., it's much easier to fire people. Okay, in the service sector, an economy that is service-based. See, the labor market is much more flexible, and so what happens is that, see, when you have an industrial economy, you have a factory that needs 100 workers. You can't fire 1 or 2 workers. See, because if you don't have 100 workers, the factory is going to shut down. You need 100 workers. You can't make do with 98 or 95 or whatever the fuck. But in a service economy, you can. In a service economy, unlike a manufacturing economy, you can get rid of everybody. Then, from one day to the next. That kind of insecurity, that breeds fear, and fear breeds resentment. So, yeah. Sorry for blackpilling the fuck out of you about the situation, but just to tell you that this is where we're at with fucking South Africa and where I think America is going. So, without further ado, I'm going to put out the the link, and to tell you guys, I'm a little bit foggy, and I realize I've gone an hour and 40 minutes, but to tell you the truth, I'm not going to make more than half an hour of questions. I'm posting right now the invite. You can join up and ask questions, but I ask you to be brief and to the point. Okay, because I'm really like foggy and not, quite frankly, I'm not 100%. What the fuck can I tell you? Okay, so hop on and ask your question and to the point, and I'll try to answer it as best I can. And you guys can ask anything you want. Hey, Pagliacci, what's up? Hello? Pagliacci, are you there? Okay.
Coach, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. What's up?
Oh, hey, sorry about that. I had myself muted. So I just want to ask, you say that there's, according to your estimate, there's a 40% chance that the whites in South Africa will be killed off and eliminated.
Look,
but what?
This is, don't hold me to it. This is a random guess, okay? Because anything could happen. But go ahead.
Right, and I just want to know what you believe the chances are that the whites, the Indians, the coloreds in South Africa will be able to form their own state. Will be able to, put up a substantial enough resistance to, break away from South Africa and perhaps form their own state, maybe in the Western Cape or something.
Well, you need like a defensible territory that doesn't have any enemy actors in it. Is there such a place in South Africa?
Well, I mean, from my understanding, other than that, than the Western Cape, there doesn't really seem to be a place where they'll be able to do that.
Look, anything can happen. Okay. But what I do know is that the next few months are going to be fucking horrifying for South Africa because it's already in the post. It can't be changed. All this destruction of all these warehouses, all these supermarkets. It's the supermarket and food supply and distribution that's been destroyed. That's the serious thing. Okay. So it's going to be fucking miserable over the next few months in South Africa. I mean, I certainly wouldn't want to be there. But what can happen beyond that? It's anybody's guess. You got to understand that once you hit like a historical nucleus, a historical nucleus. No, that's not the right word, but a historical juncture. Let's call it that. Where things go, dude. It can be anywhere. Okay, anything can happen. Okay, but I can guarantee one thing: it's going to be fucking misery. That I can guarantee. How exactly that misery will be, I don't know. I'm sorry I can't give you a more specific answer, but that's the best I can do.
Thank you very much, Coach. I appreciate your time.
No problem. Thanks very much for being on. Um, let me see.
Hi.
Richard, how's it going?
Well, going well. Thanks for asking. I have one question. I'm not going to hold you back. I want to know, do leftists understand satire and sarcasm?
No.
But what? But how? I just want to know how they can't understand that.
That's a good question. You have to be at least a one standard deviation above the norm in IQ points to get sarcasm. I mean, sarcasm is when you understand sarcasm, it's a signal that you're smart. Okay,
Mhm.
And so I think it's just a matter of just not enough IQ points. Okay, there's that famous meme that's the bell curve distribution of intelligence, right? And
Mhm.
on the far left of it is this retard, on the far right is this like genius, and in the middle is the midwit. And the retard and the genius agree on everything, and the midwit thinks some stupid liberal nonsense.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
well, I think that's basically it. I think that stupid meme is basically on point because I've met people who are mentally deficient. Okay, and what happens with people who are mentally deficient is that since they experience the world without any kind of big abstract concepts, they just experience it directly, and they say, "Oh, that's the way it is," and they accept the reality without trying to rationalize it or explain it away. Whereas the guy who's slightly more intelligent tries to explain it away, tries to explain why it's not so bad, or it's not this way, or it's not that way. They try to, do these mental gymnastics. The dumb guy doesn't. Dumb guy knows that that's the way things are. And the very smart guy also knows that that's the way things are. It's the guy in the middle, the mediocrity. He's the one who can't think. That's the best explanation I can give, man. What can I say?
Thank you very much, and yeah.
No
Bye.
problem. Okay, take it. Sorry, I hope that answered your
Yeah,
question.
it answered. Yeah.
Okay, take it easy, Richard.
Thank you.
Hey, Coach.
How's it going?
Hey, I want to say before I ask my question, I was supposed to move to Johannesburg for a business deal. I know the owner of one of the largest brokers and asset managers in Joburg, as they call it. He left a while ago with all his money. He moved to California. This guy manages like $3 billion, and I can't say the name because you'll know the broker. It's a derivative of the US
no
broker.
names. No
Yeah,
names. Yeah.
I spoke to the CEO in Johannesburg, and he's like, "It's a very beautiful country, but it's run by fucking morons." He told me, and he's like, "Everybody who's intelligent wants to leave. Like everyone's applying for passports or getting their money out." I mean, I live in Israel. And if you go in my town, it's full of expats. There's so many South Africans with money, like the supermarket or anywhere. They're just leaving. You know,
Yep.
I didn't watch the presentation, but everything going on, I can confirm from people on the ground. It's a fuck. Even before the rioting, it was opening a business account or doing business in Africa was a nightmare. It's a corrupt fucking shithole.
Yeah, it is. I've told guys that you should go to Africa to seek your fortune. Yeah, South Africa is not a place to go. Okay, I think,
I agree.
Yeah, but the thing is, yeah, it's a shithole, and look, I think that it's over. I mean, you've seen those pictures of South Africa back in the 1960s compared
Yeah,
to
it's beautiful.
today. Yeah,
It's amazing.
dude, it's over. It's over.
Did you ever see the video comparing the old pictures of the old Johannesburg to the new Johannesburg? Like it's you want to cry. It's devastating because
Yeah. Yeah.
But on the benefit, so African girls are really hot. Like the Dutch ones, they're really hot.
Go to Holland. You'll find
Yeah.
Dutch girls all
But
over the
like
place there.
tan and their sport. It's I don't know how to explain it. There's just something about South Africans. Anyway, I wanted to ask
Sure.
about any advice for dating shy girls?
Oh yeah. See, the temptation with shy girls is to think that they're really deep. Okay.
What if she is really deep?
Yeah. No. Be careful. See, lots of shy girls, they trap you a guy like that. Not trap them, not like in a deliberate sense. It's not like a gold digger or some shit like that. But what happens is that a lot of shy girls, you think that they're shy and that they got like all these deep thoughts and big brained ideas and shit like that. And they're just quiet. And then you discover this and you discover that they're really boring as fuck. That's the truth.
Can I interject?
Sure.
So I don't remember, but I'm the one with the hot Venezuelan cousin who's half Hungarian, half Venezuelan.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and she set me up with her best friend. Her best friend is like insanely intelligent. She speaks like 5 languages in the army. She's like an engineer. She went like a medical student, and I've spoken to her. And she's like a very intelligent woman. But
Yes.
I know what you're talking about. I've met the shy girls who are fucking morons, and they're just too embarrassed to say anything. But I can confirm this girl is pretty. She like asked me about my job, and she's like,
just because somebody's intelligent, okay, she knows. Okay, I know a woman. I know her very well. She does 5 languages. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes, and I saw her pick up 1 language. She picked up fluently 1 language in not 60 days, that fast, and could speak it and have like a fluid conversation in less than 60 days. Okay. And she was just like really bright, really smart. I mean, a lot of IQ points and just boring. I mean, just incredibly boring. Okay. And so just because somebody is really smart doesn't mean that they're
really hot.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
But like really my type.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you got to keep in mind that sometimes just because shy girls, I always fall for shy girls. Shy, quiet girls, they're my Achilles heel. Okay. And I'm always disappointed with them. Okay.
I'll keep that in mind.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So,
see you.
Best of luck to you. Take it easy. Hey, Igor, how's it going?
Hello, Mr. Gonzalo. How are you?
Pretty good. Pretty good. What's up? What's on your mind?
So since you said you're under the weather, I have multiple questions, but do you want to talk about Potlava or no?
No, not now.
Okay.
I mean, that's for another conversation. Yeah. But
I just wanted to ask you because I did not amend last time. So you said for young men to seek their fortune in Africa, and I basically, what do you think about buying real estate in Europe? You have real estate people that have money, but very few people, and in Africa you have people who don't have money, but a lot of people.
no, I mean, like Africa is not a place to invest. Africa is a place to go and seek your fortune. Okay, and that's what I meant when I say go to Africa. I said if you're like a young guy and you don't really know where to go to fucking Africa. And there are lots of opportunities if you hustle and move around. But like in terms of investing in Africa, I personally would never do it. I wouldn't invest in anything in Africa. I would invest time and like trying to start up businesses in Africa and potentially flip those businesses. But in terms of like settling in Africa and buying real estate or something like that, no, I would not do that. I'm in Ukraine. And I firmly believe in Ukraine because also I realize that this part of Ukraine, which has historically belonged to Russia, and which it was only given to Ukraine in 1954 by Nikita Khrushchev, really as an administrative move as opposed to something organic. I know that in 5 to 20 years, at some point, this region of Ukraine will fall back into Russia. That seems pretty clear to me. And when that happens, I don't think that there's going to be much disruption because most of the people here are ethnically Russian, right? And so, yeah, it's going to be perfectly fine. But in Africa, in any nation of Africa, no matter how, I mean, you can go to Nigeria, which right now is like the most stable. You don't know what's going to happen there. I mean, now things could be going well, but in 10 years, you don't even know what's going to happen in 5 years. So, no, I would not invest in Africa. I would go there to seek my fortune if I were a young man, but like to live there and invest and have like a whole life there forever. No, sorry.
But why did you choose Africa instead of India? Because by projections, by 2030, India is going to be the 2nd largest economy in the world.
There are more inefficiencies in Africa. There are more inefficiencies, and inefficiencies is where you make your fortune. See, when you have a very efficient economy, when the margins are very tight, you don't make real money. See, you never make real money in a tight economy, in an economy where the margins are really tight, like in India. But in inefficient markets like Africa, there's a lot of room to leverage. See, and you can leverage shit by quite a bit if you know what you're doing. Not even if you know what you're doing, if you just go out and take it. That's the beauty of Africa. See, and also there's something else. See, a lot of very capable guys are going to India, right? But not many capable guys are going to Africa. So there's going to be less competition. Simple as that. Yeah, that's what I think, Igor.
Yeah,
Anything else?
just the last question, because you
Sure.
said that we should say yes to everything when we are young and network. And a couple of days ago, actually yesterday, I had this beautiful moment with my friends. We went on a nights out, and we made with a couple of girls, and we howled at the moon like a couple of lunatic autistic people. And but when I came home, I looked through Instagram and saw like mansions and all that shiny shit, and I said to myself, I'm not going to get any of that if I continue.
Oh no,
Uh,
no, no, no. If you had a good time with these girls, doesn't matter if
and
she's
guys,
rich or not. What?
guys and girls,
Don't worry about it. I mean, look, it doesn't matter. See, don't worry about that shit. Okay, just go for broke. Okay. Look, it's always better to regret having tried to do something than regret not having done something. Okay. So just go for broke. Always say yes. Always say yes. And don't sound like a retard, or like don't get all like needy, right? But go for it. Yeah. Don't be a fool. You'll regret it later. How old are you, Igor?
19.
19? Please just go for it, because you will regret it so much if you don't. And it'll be a regret that you'll know for the rest of your life, and it'll be miserable. I'm dead serious. I'm not kidding. Okay?
Understand. Thanks.
Okay. Take it easy, man.
Bye.
Hello, Italo. How's it going? You there?
Hi, hello. What's up?
Nothing much. Just getting over this godforsaken cold. And yeah. So tell me, what's up? What's your mind?
It's cold here as well. Yeah, it's interesting topic that you're talking about today. Yeah. I was studying this thing. I see like people are getting very tribal in the U.S. and Europe, for example. Like they're starting their own organization and ethno-nationalist groups. Like, what do you think about that? That people are getting very tribal, specifically whites that now are looking at what's going on.
It's a natural reaction to this racialism. See, because a lot of whites are saying, hey, I don't have anything to feel guilty about. I never did anything. I've never been racist towards a black person or a Chinese person or any person, and never even been discourteous. And why am I being labeled as a racist, evil pig when I'm not? Fuck you. And that's what's happening. It's a natural reaction. Okay. And these racialists are just doubling down because they have to. Okay. They have no other option, because this is the only card that they have to play. And so they have to double down. They have to say, oh, if you oppose us, then you're an evil white nationalist or some shit like that. And so it actually creates white nationalism. That's the tragedy of the situation. See?
Yeah, exactly. People are going full in white nationalism now. You see on Telegram, it's
they're
growing and growing.
1488 all the way. I mean, this is real hardcore white nationalism in some corners of the internet. And that never would have happened if these race hustlers, because that's what they are, hadn't been allowed to proceed with their bullshit. And look, you got to understand, they were crafty about it, because by flipping the racial guilt card at people, they put people on the back foot. See? And are you a racist? If I say to you, are you a racist? How come you have these racist thoughts or whatever? You're like, I don't have any racist thoughts, but automatically you're on the back foot. See? You're on the defense.
Exactly. It's like they're putting now everything that's racist, like math, literature, art is racist, everything. So people will say, okay, let's just become racist.
yeah, exactly. Everybody's like, okay, fuck it. If I am a racist, I'll just go whole hog. That's what's happening.
Yeah, that's going to be wow. Yeah, I can imagine the civil war in my mind. No, yeah, totally.
It's gonna get ugly. It's gonna get ugly before it gets any better. I'll tell you that. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Gonzalo. Stay safe.
Take it easy, Italo. Hey, Jamie, how's it going?
I'm doing fine, Gonzalo. How are you doing?
Oh, just foggy, to tell you the truth. But anyway, what's on your mind, man?
So, since last year, since the riots, I've been thinking with concern about the possibility that at some stage there'll be a white ethnic cleansing event in America. Something that obviously none of us want to
That's not
see.
going to happen. That's not going to happen. Because
So my question,
the whites in the United States are still an absolute majority. So that's not going to happen. Okay, it might get close,
right.
but if it ever comes to like a real group of black people or Hispanic people or any combination thereof of racial minorities actually persecuting white people, the white people will say, "Fuck it, we're not going to go the way of South Africa," because there will be the example of South Africa. Okay. And no, they'll fight back, and then it'll be a race war. But the minorities will lose, and it'll be horrible. Okay, because also what will happen is that fear uh, of being exterminated deliberately just because of the color of their skin will lead to greater cruelty. This has always been the case throughout human history because it's a thing about human beings. When we believe that we are going to be the victims of cruelty, not merely that we're going to take a punch from an opponent, but that our opponent is going to be deliberately cruel, that causes fear. And that makes us even more cruel in response. And that's the key issue here. See? And so I think that that the extermination of whites in South Africa, I think it's in the post. Okay. And like I said before, I think it's like if I had to bet, I'd say it's like a 40% chance that it'll happen. But if anything like that started to happen in the United States, when the United States is still an absolute white majority country, and there was like a persecution of whites because they are white, dude, whoever is doing that persecution, they are going to get their asses handed to them. They'll be exterminated. And it'll be like, fuck these minorities, get them out of my country. And yeah, they'll go whole hog. Yeah, that's my thinking. That's my thinking.
okay, so you think that basically,
By the way, I just want to make it clear, okay? I think that any kind of violence is horrifying. And I think that the fact that we are talking about this kind of stuff should horrify all of us, because nobody wants to live in a society where there is actual racial violence. I think this is horrible, okay? I mean, I want to make that really, really clear, okay? And I'm not saying it, like I'm putting on the Band-Aid in front of before everything. No, I'm saying it sincerely. I grew up in Southern California during the 70s, and I remember I had Asian friends and black friends and white friends, and nobody cared. Nobody cared. And that's the kind of society that in America I liked. I thought that was a wonderful thing. And I have lived in countries that are actually racist, okay? That are real full-on racist. And racist to the tiniest degree, okay? And I can tell you that it's not a pleasant experience. And one of the things I loved about the United States is the fact that people ignored race. They didn't pay attention. They looked at the person in front of them. They looked at him, at who he was. And if he was an asshole, he's an asshole. But it wasn't because he was this race or that race. He was just an asshole. And if he was a great guy, it wasn't that he was a great guy. It wasn't like any kind of racial condescension. It was just, he's a great guy. But that is gone because of the racialists. And my fear, my deep, deep fear, is that this racialism, this racialist ideology of the progressive left is going to lead to all kinds of nightmares. And that's why you asked me. And so I'm saying what I think might happen. I hope it doesn't. I'm certainly not advocating it. On the contrary.
yeah. The thing that really concerned me was back a number of years ago when people would say to these racial activists, here, you're being racist. And they'll say, oh, no, we can't be racist because racism equals power plus prejudice.
That's
basically
bullshit.
implying the only thing stopping them from being racist is they don't have the power to implement what they want to do.
Point. Good point. Yeah. Well, now they do. And they are implementing it. And look, at the end of the day, you got to understand that all this racialism bullshit, it's just a bunch of people who want to get power, political power, and they figured out a way to do it. Okay, that's it.
Yeah.
No more complicated than that. Okay,
Yeah.
play the race card. It's simple as that.
Yeah. I'm glad it hasn't migrated full on over to my country yet, but
Ireland?
Yes, it's
Well,
getting there.
You guys in Ireland, you're kind of fucked now, aren't you? I mean, the Ireland of today is a country that I can't even recognize from the first time I went there in 1997. It's completely different. You know, I don't know how old you are, but dude, your country has just been overrun, overrun by foreign people and overrun by a foreign ideology. You know, I don't get it. I mean, I find
Yeah.
it really sad, but that's me.
Yeah, I'm 29 years old, and yeah, I've seen the change over my lifetime. It's a very different country from even when I was 10, 12.
Yeah, it is, you know, and I don't think it's going to get any better in Ireland. And I think that the situation with Brexit and this whole situation, it's going to be very interesting to see what happens insofar as the Northern Ireland and if the troubles come back because of the EU and because the EU wants to give a poison pill for the whole Brexit situation. So we'll see how that goes, man. Anyway, great talking to you, Jimmy. You take it easy.
Same to you.
Okay.
Catch you.
Hey, Pierre, how's it going?
How's it, coach? Am I sound better tonight?
Yeah, you're in South Africa. How's it going?
Yes, no, good and you, man. Nice
Well,
to...
tell me, give me your grade. How was my presentation? Was it on the money? I didn't know what the fuck I was talking about, or in between?
Now you can see you did your research, huh?
I try my best. What can I say?
Yeah, no, you did well. Yeah, there's a lot you can add to this, but yeah, we can't do it in 3 or 4 hours or in a day or two. It's quite
It's long. It's a lot of shit.
A long thing to discuss. Yeah.
I mean, there are all these factions in the South African politics, right? I mean, because for the audience who doesn't know, and Pierre would certainly know, I glossed over a lot of different factions and a lot of different groups just to make it more or less manageable. Because within the ANC, there are all kinds of different groups, and there are parallel groups, and it's just a whole fucking mess. Like I said at the beginning of the presentation, there are 11 official languages in South Africa. So there are all these different competing interest groups and whatnot. It's a bit of a mess. So, yeah. So anyway, Pierre, what's on your mind?
Yeah, coach. What I also wanted to add is like the police and the military. It was actually like they were protecting the looters, like the BLM stuff in the USA. Yeah,
Really?
You could see the police were looting with them and stuff. That you won't.
Yeah, I heard that.
Yeah.
Well,
so,
actually, it makes sense because a lot of the police officers are going to be ANC or ANC affiliated, and so yeah, it's just a mess. Yeah, I know that the police in South Africa are pretty much useless, and I know that the South African military, because they haven't been given the power to do anything, are kind of just for show. They're just standing around. I don't know how effective they are. The military, how effective are they? Are they any good, or are they just bullshit?
No, the people that shot live ammunition were the public that were protecting their businesses.
Yeah, I know that. And especially the Indians and Asians, they were really out there.
Yeah, the whites are so patronized. They're too scared to do anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That white guilt, that racial
white
guilt.
Yeah, that's quite a problem.
Yes, it is.
But what I saw in the BLM, how can I to compare it with the BLM looting in the USA is like our president didn't say they should use live ammo, and also Trump also didn't say that. That was like showing some weakness of Trump there, because I think a strong leader won't tolerate any looting and stuff, and they will use live ammo. Or what's your thoughts?
I don't know. To tell you the truth, I'm running out of gas, so I'm gonna.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry, I forgot.
No. Like I said,
that's not the right thing to ask. Yeah.
Huh?
We can't talk about this stuff. You're right. I understand. I'm sorry. I didn't think.
No,
No.
don't worry about it. I'm like running out of gas. I'm like a little bit because I'm still under the weather. Okay, and
Yes.
so
No. No. No.
Pierre, you're going to be the last caller because I'm realizing that I'm not effective and I have to wind down the show. But look, let's do this, Pierre. Next show, be on, and I'll be able to answer your question better. Okay?
Yeah. No, it's just about Trump. But yeah. Okay. Now you must go well and recover
Thanks.
fully.
Thanks a lot. I
Okay.
appreciate it.
Thanks.
Take it
Thanks
easy.
for
Okay, so let me just. Okay, so I'm sorry because I've only gone a little over 2 hours, which I usually do like 2.5, 3 hours. But I'm just a little bit. All of a sudden, it just hit me like a bricks that I've just run out of gas, and so I'm going to call a halt to the stream because it's just not going well. Or it's going well enough, but I'm just like all of a sudden, like my energy level, it's just like vroom, just dropped down. Two things I want to tell you. Number one, the Wednesday video was postponed. It's not canceled. It's just postponed. And number two, I'm going to make up this the last Sunday's webinar at some point this week. But there's a third issue coming up is that I'm going to be with the Duran on Wednesday. I'm going to do a live stream with them. And it's going to be like the same format here on StreamYards. It's going to be on my channel. And what I'm going to try to do is set it up so that you guys on Patreon get to be the only ones who ask live questions. Now, if you don't know the Duran, go check him out on YouTube. It's Alexander Mercouris and Alex, I forget how to pronounce his last name, who's also a Greek last name. And they're two friends, and they have this show called The Duran, and they each have individual channels. I recommend you subscribe to all three of them, the Duran and the two channels of the two Alexes, which are fantastic, because they have the best geopolitical analysis around. And we're going to be shooting the shit about different things. And it's going to be like a couple of hours at least. It'll be on Wednesday. It's already set. It's all going to happen. And what I encourage you to do is that I'll set it up so that you guys can ask me questions and get on the stream to discuss the points that we raise, okay? And insofar as the webinar that was missed, it'll be made up this week at some point, probably Thursday. And what I'll try to do is on Wednesday, deliver like a double dose of videos. Because what I want to do is that by the end of this week, which we're coming up at the end of the month, I want to have made up the video and webinar that I had to postpone because of this illness. Okay. Okay. So thanks for being on. Sorry if I'm not if I ran out of gas all of a sudden, but I wish I could get to the other people, but I'm just like a little bit kaput. Okay. Sorry about that. It's just the nature of getting sick and stuff. So anyway, take it easy, and I will catch you next time.